Good morning, lovelies. How are y'all doing today? Good morning, good morning, good morning. I know I'm muted. I wasn't making any noise, but I was watching a show. Sorry, y'all. I had a bit of a panic attack this morning, so it took me a little while to get up, which, happens sometimes. Sometimes you just wake up and your body's like, no, you should not exist. But I'm doing okay now. Just took me a little bit longer to wake up. Yeah, I'm fine now, I promise. I do apologize that I'm a bit late today. I'm doing fine. I called up a friend, we talked a little bit, and I am all good now. I'm with headphones and you got spooked. Why are you always spooked by me? Oh, thank you for the head pats. No, I'm totally fine. I'm fine, yo. I took some time this morning. I made myself a, waffle. Thank you for the hydrate. I'm waiting for my tea, too. Tea. But yeah, no, it happens. And, panic attacks are okay. Everybody has them to different degrees. And sometimes there's just nothing that triggers them. You just wake up and your body's like, hey, I hate you today. Totally fine, though. The thing is, it's not totally quiet. I think y'all have your volume turned down so low because I have at about half volume, I have the music. What kind of tea? Just black tea today. Well, get spook nerds. One day I'll re-listen to these streams though to figure out why some of you can hear the music and some of you can't. One day. Good morning, Cinder. Good morning, everybody. Alright, you know the thing. Let's do it. That's when mine normally happens, in the morning, right when I wake up. Okay, you ready? Why did they follow me? Interesting. Okay, good morning. Congratulations, Spooky Kaz on first. Congratulations, Arya on second. And congratulations, Carmillo on third. Delicious black tea. Good morning, Spooky. Good morning, Noctis. Thank you for the sub, I really appreciate it. Good morning, Noxtus and Goblin and Amelia. Good morning, Hadlemy and Void, Huminia and Asher. Thank you, Mizaki. I hope you do well. Good morning, Asher and Necro. Good morning, Galbob and Nelia. Good morning, Spell. Oh, Sakura, get some sleep. Good morning, Nap Time and Eli and Sinful. Good morning, Onyx. Speaking of... Thank you for the stretch. One sec. One. Good morning, Onyx and Oddmilly and Bellatrix. Good morning, Rookies Rebellion, Caitlin and Lunar. Good morning, Kimizu, Kizu and Rainy. Good morning, Stellar Jazzy and Cinder. Good morning, Bella Beauty, Nimbus and Call Me Mud. Good morning, Marixel, Ava and Julia. Good morning, Pinky Cafe, Sakona, and Moss the Possum. Good morning, Shadowy Destroyer, Momumi and Render. Good morning, Lily and Amy and Roxanne. Good morning, Spooky Nemi, Catbox and Tasha. Good morning, Musinana. Oh, one day I'll figure out your name. Good morning, Silly. Good morning, Pink. Good morning, Mizaki. Good morning, Kitty Goth and Buttertub and Pendragon. Morning, Black Silver, Solian and Sunny the Sunshine. Morning, SKZ, Arya and Calypsy. Hi, Calypsy. Morning, Vanya. Hi, Vanya. Morning, Nixie. Good morning, Mizaki. Thank you for the hydrate. Good morning, Clyde. Morning, Natasha, Jabbits, and Hui. Good morning, Alex. And morning, Flashy Ginger. Goblin, you will do amazing at your appointment. I believe in you. Everything's going to be fantastic and perfect and amazing. So, as far as I can tell, the issue that I had with my microphone is finally resolved. I promise there's nothing in the closet. Good morning, Unstable Raccoon. And you know what it turns out was wrong with my microphone? People lived upstairs. They moved out, I think, and suddenly all the electronic noises in my microphone have gone away. I mean, it's not exciting also because I have no idea what was causing it. So, yeah. Oh. Does Ara actually say to call you something? I need to change that one. Da-da. I think I probably relabeled a different one. Because I had a few that were like, good boy, good girl, and that kind of stuff. But people got weird about them really quickly, so those are no longer there. Well, today we're going to. We are all good little voidlings. What's your goal? I think it's funny y'all have goals for point redeems. I need to add more exciting point redeems. You are all good little voidlings. It's true. You have a choice in the matter. I'm making you be good. Oh no, here comes the lag. Here comes the lag, na 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 na. Here comes the lag, and I say it's alright. We need 4K for. No, I'm such a good doggy. You're a good voidling, even if you don't think you are. So we're gonna do some more house flipper. I've been enjoying it. You're kidding. You're putting me in a cage this morning, really? Really? Fine. Fine, I'll go in a cage. Insane. I can't believe you do this to me. You've put me in a cage. Look at this glass cage of emotions. Yeah, I'll be right back. Give me just a second. I need to check on something. I'm back. Did y'all do anything while I was gone? I found Creamer. You ended your Discord call. Can't believe you. You watched me being gone? Why'd you do fires? Don't do fires. You don't need to be doing fires. Who's doing fires? What is this clip? Really spooky. That's adorable. Alright, let's go. Oh, I guess we're still doing... Arf, arf. I'm such a cute little puppy. I'll finally get some rest. Good, I'm glad. I have a good one, Vax. I believe in you. Gene is in cage for being bad. Wait a second, what? I didn't read the story on this one, but they're like, well, we have a baby on the way. Why is the house such a disaster? Bro. What the heck? Whose house looks like this? You can only redeem it twice per stream. I have it limited to 2 per person. That's why it says 2 per person. Yeah. Yeah, because before when I had it, people would be like, would redeem things non-stop, and I'm just like, that's not, no. Really? This one again. What is with you all in this voice? Is it just because it's new? Is that what it is? Oh, you don't know what it is? Well, it's a misspelling of Brit in Butler. No. It's a very nice voice, 'tis good. See, when Garmea says it's good, I don't believe it. Suppose I have a very good reason for it. 'Cause she would be the kind to lie to me about these things, wouldn't she? Misaki, there's absolutely no reason for you to apologize for anything. You're fine. I would tell you if it sucked. I don't believe you. I'll enjoy lying down, Cannonpop. Enjoy. No, it's not 2 per lifetime. It is 2 per stream. It's my weird broom mop. What happened? I was being offered a menace. We are cleaning houses, I suppose. Yes, but maybe she thinks it's funny. Maybe she thinks it's funny. Thank you for the head pats. She gremlin chuckles? In what kind of way? In what kind of way does she do that? What kind of giggle is it? See, now I have to do it around her to see what she's doing. A little paranoid now. Oh, you better be ready for it. I'm coming for you, Karunia. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Sonny. Man, cage time is up. And so is the British voice. I like just slowly rubbing the walls. Now we're going to turn the game volume up a little bit. I hear nothing. Do you think the broom makes noise? It has to make noise, right? Why would it not make noise? We're gonna try this. Okay, so the footsteps make noise, but the brooming does not make noise. Interesting. So technically it's mopping. That's not touching anything. I mean, but it has to be. Oh, you're right. We're just kind of... Do you know what it is? You ever seen those, like... I think it's like a Shinto... like the wand that they use during rituals where they just kind of like wave it around. That's what it is. I'm just casting cleaning spells. I'm just going... Good night, nap time. Sleep well. Thank you for the hydrate and the stretch. No, I'm a cleaning wizard. Good morning, Megan vibes. I'm a pinball wizard. Do 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 do. There is dirt here. Got it. I like my dirt vision. I wish I had dirt vision IRL. Actually, that'd probably be a nightmare, wouldn't it? Imagine constantly knowing where all the dirt in the house is. You know what, though? I mean, prestidigitation is... This is literally prestidigitation. You gotta leave dirt on the pills, you right. I have dirt vision, bad eyesight. Oh, sorry, prestidigitation is a spell that can be used to clean a 1 square foot of thing to clean. So literally I could just be, I cast prestidigitation and could just be cleaning. I'm such a good doggy. How was my sleep? My sleep wasn't too bad. Never get enough, but you know, it could have been a lot worse. I don't know how I feel about cleaning like this, actually. The more I think about it, we're going around with a single mop and just going loop. There's no bucket involved here. Ooh, thank you so much for the win, team. What do you mean I don't get enough correct, Gatamia? Yeah, what game is that, Katamia? What game is more realistic with cleaning? Are you gonna tell me to actually clean my place? I hate that. Ooh, I hate that. Ooh, I hate that. Oh, I hated that. Oh, oh no. No. Yeah, also Katamia though, I get dirty when I clean my actual place. I hate that. And yeah. So no. Plus, like, yeah, no, there's too many. Things don't clean as easily as they do in video games. I wish they did, but they do not. Not saying my place is that messy right now, but you know. There's no urge for me to do it. I cannot do a Boston accent. Not currently. Maybe one day. But I do not know one now. I just see Wicked all the time. I'll just be Joey from Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. See, oh, the cards. No, I definitely can't. I could learn one. I can learn any accent. Any accent's learnable. Any voice is learnable. Even I'm learnable. You can just do Gene accent. I do think it's funny, the guy who's like, you're probably larger than 6'4" from the Midwest. And I'm like, ha 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 ha. Darn. Well, how about somebody comes clean my place and I'll clean their place, okay? Da-da-da. Bakura. Bakura. Tradesies, no trades back. I hate this. Why was it not a squeegee? Why'd they make it a scraper? It could have been a squeegee. Thank you for the follow, blinkers. Welcome to the menagerie. It is. I mean, not really. People do scraping on glass all the time, but I just hate it in this fashion. Yeah, same here, Goblin. I agree. It's just, I don't know, I feel like it's something like it's a new activity. But I'm kind of used to some of my stuff, so why would I want to clean it? Thank you for the hydrate. I always just wake up before these streams. Before every stream in the morning, my ASMR streams is literally right before I wake up. Or right after. Yes, I start stream before I wake up every day. I do not bite my nails, but I'm only ADD. I don't have any nervous tics. Except taking things apart and breaking things. Y'all are, you know you're fine, right? Y'all can come into stream and say nothing and I would be totally okay with that. I would never be like, oh my god, how dare you come into my stream and not be the focus and the center of everything. Y'all, it is my job to talk. Y'all can come in and just go, and I would be like, okay, cool, vibes. Chat, I want you to see if you can type those noises I just made. I believe in you. Yep, valid. wait. I hate some of you got it so well. I hate some of you did it so... Oh. Okay, we're okay. Y'all nailed that. I can't believe you managed to type it. Are we entertaining? You do entertain me. You don't need to, but I do appreciate it. Okay, I got that 1% extra clean. I don't know what it was, but it's clean now. Yawns. Pita bread. No. See, that's the thing. Noxness, that's the thing that I think a lot of streamers need to learn. The point is not for you all to interact with the streamer unless you want to interact with the streamer. The point is for the streamer to be entertaining. If there's nobody here, it needs to still be the same stream. You know, I still need to be able to stream, even if you're not here. And it takes a lot of practice to get to that point where you can do that. And some streamers never learn. Dye your hair purple, yes. Obviously. Mm-hmm. Imagine it more like this. You've walked into a comedy show, right? And there's a guy on stage, he's already telling jokes. And so you sit down, and the guy goes, "So, where are you all from?" You can talk at any point in time, right? You know, you can interact if you want to. But the comedian does not expect everybody to respond. He's just looking for a few people to bounce off of, because he's got a planned joke or a line or a phrase here to do. Which is also why, if you are talking random stuff in a stream the whole time with other people, it's like walking into a show already going and being like, yeah, you know what, screw this comedian on the stage that I paid to come see. And the thing is, like, no, I'm not telling you to stop talking, and I want you to interact. See, I'm like a comedian who's always doing crowd work. And if I say something that gets a vibe and gets you interacting, then bam, I did something good. But it's not an obligation either. Because my show will still be here no matter what. That's what I do, like in one of my coaching sessions, is I teach that kind of like that idea of, remember, you are the entertainer, you are the primary focus of stream. If there's no streamer, there's no stream. But if there's no audience, the stream still has to go on. And so that's the way you should focus on things. And it has resulted in people seeing a massive uptick in viewership. Because people come in and they're like, oh, it's a show, let me come watch. And they get excited and want to interact. I love it. I love getting to interact with all of you. It's the best. And I love giving you all a place that you can either just hop in, vibe with, or a place you can hang out. Oh, and this is when, so 0 viewers is great. And here's what you do with 0 viewers. You practice branching topics. Okay? And that's the best time to start practicing. And you go into just chatting. Remember, you always want to start in just chatting if you're a new streamer. Because just chatting is the only category where people are going to go and try to find somebody with less views. Because they want to interact with somebody, you know? If people are joining you and you have very little views and you're playing a multiplayer game, it's because they want to join. They want to play with you. But if you are doing just chatting, they just want to talk. They'll look at your tags and they'll be like, ooh, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder what kind of vibe he is. Or she, of course. And you want to practice branching topics and making yourself the center of the stream. That starts with, writing down a bunch of topics that you can talk on for hours and that you can go off of. You go with, like, let's try, dogs. Dogs is my favorite one. It's very easy to understand. So let's see, you have a dog, right? The topic is dogs. You can talk about dog breeds. You can talk about pets you've had. You can talk about stories other people that you've known who have had pets. You can talk about viral pets online. It branches constantly, right? Hi, Beamy. It is House Flipper. Do you have a problem with that, Beamy? Beamy knows what we do here. Where were we? Alright, back to my thing. Okay, so. No, let's get the cot. Let's do Pastel Rose. I'm doing great. Thank you for the shout out. Brain. All right, talking about content. So yeah, so you want to talk, once you talk about dogs for a little bit, you talk about people's dogs that you know, or different situations with dogs, and as you progress with that, you can bounce off then the people themselves that you were talking about who had stories. You could talk about family members. You can talk about weird family members and all sorts of things. And see, the topics keep like growing and bouncing and changing, allowing you to slowly progress and keep talking, because you always have somewhere to advance to the next point. Fine. Is that better? Now, here's where the big thing happens, okay? Viewers want to come in and talk. Well, here's the thing. First off, if you're doing, like, you're starting to do, you're just chatting streams, write down what you want to talk about, okay? Write them down first. That way, when you're starting the stream, it's going to be a lot easier to handle. Yes. But when viewers are coming in, you want to use viewers as jumping off points. You're not responding to people, because if you respond to people, you put the burden of the stream on them, right? Like right now, if I go, hey, Beamy, what are you doing right now? I love this example. See, B might have left. B might not be here. B might be flustered and might hate the situation right now. B might not even be near anything as having to type. But you put the burden on the viewer. And I know it's like a lesser case, because so often when people are talking, like, they'll try to keep talking a little bit, but you still never want to put the burden on the viewer for your conversation. And so if you can't talk with no people there, then you're more than likely going to be putting the burden on the viewer every time you're streaming. And there you go. Oh, don't worry, Academia. I'm planning on bringing back the lists. I know stream's a mess, but it's my room, and so I don't really care about it. But yeah, it's what I go over in my coaching. Honestly, this is kind of funny though, like, unironically. I consider this my space, and so immediately I'm just like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's not like anybody else is gonna see it. Okay, can I? Oh, sweet. Oh, yeah. So there's the thing, Mutt. People don't realize they're doing that. They don't realize they're doing that. They're talking to the most responsive person, and it forms these kind of like communal cliques. And that's one of the things I try to like train out of people right at the very beginning, to be like, hey, if you do this, no one's going to feel comfortable to talk. Because you're having a one-on-one private conversation, you know? The reason you also do a list, though, is just so you have a place for your brain to go back. Here's a good thing to do. At the beginning of every stream, what I like to do, and you might have noticed this, you might not, I go, hey y'all, we're going to be doing blah, 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 blah. And if you see what I'm doing there immediately is setting a precedent for what the stream is going to be, so that you all are ready to experience certain things, and my brain is ready to lead you to these places. We might never get there, of course. Oh, this is a college place. But the introduction is there not only to to introduce things, it is to prepare your brain. Same thing with conversation topics. If you have your conversation topics written down, you're ready for them. You're ready to head off in that direction. Let's do a mountable washing machine. And I'll put this here. Oh, that's where it needs to go. Exactly. And those are the streamers who are never going to grow past a certain point. Because if you are only having that kind of communication situation, nobody's ever going to come in, and they're going to be the ones wondering why they haven't grown or why all these issues are happening. And they will go 5 years never changing anything, which is always crazy to me. How do you stream for that long and then just, never consider maybe it's me that's the problem? What am I doing? I think so many people think streaming is just, keep doing it until you get popular. But nobody wants to watch if they don't feel like, if the stream isn't good. Exactly. I don't know what PF stands for. I wasn't going to ask. But the context made sense to me. I know, Godmia, you do a lovely job of that. I do really appreciate you. I see the work you do. I hope you know that. You have made the stream such a better place, and all the mods do. Let's put this one in. I don't get why I can sleep here. This game must be made by a European person, Because this doesn't exist in the States. This must be European. Does anyone... So I know a lot of you are in the States. Does anybody have radiators still? Like anybody? These ones especially. Like, you don't see these anywhere. Of course, Sakana. Yeah, and there are so many really, really good mod applicants. I just have only so many spots right now. And not everybody's exactly what we're looking for at that time. You could say it's really radiating. Exactly. Am I putting a sink? Oh, why did I think there's a sink here? They have them up north? I guess, like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad, Spooky. Oh, that is loud. 1 second, let me mute. It's really interesting, especially when you look. Yes, the air conditioner also heats. We have central heating most of the time. So there's vents that go through the ceiling and stuff, and yeah, it's both heat and cold. Which is kind of like interesting if you think about it. I'm gonna make this ugly. Yes. Oh wait, no, this is one of the. I hate these tight spaces. Because the only thing that makes sense is doing one of these. I had liked having radiators when I was in Germany, especially with like the ones that are in whatchamacallit. Okay, here's something that's actually interesting. So, a lot of European places also don't have closets. That's why there's so many more like cabinets in Europe. Because in the States, we have like closets, part of like every room has a closet. But in Europe, they will use like a lot of cabinets instead, and trunks and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, they just have wardrobes. Wardrobe. People have wardrobes. And like, I mean, like, you know, Lion, Little Witch in the Wardrobe. Like, they're big places that you can hang clothes in. But, so there's like more space, but less space at the same time. And so if you ever look at like European households, like you'll never see the classic American thing where there's like no furniture at all because they couldn't hang stuff up. Sounds fake. It's not. I wish it was, because when I lived there, it was one of my more annoying situations to be in. Because I got used to closets. Europe isn't real. That's fair. Yeah, I have a walk-through closet, which is so goofy. I mean, not really. You just get more wardrobes. And why do you think why do you call it your closer wardrobe? You just buy another wardrobe. My voice is so intimidating. Grrr. Oh yeah, Japan especially doesn't have closets. Honestly, America is one of the few places that I know of that does have like closets guaranteed in all the places. But Japan will have a lot of under the ground space. I'm terrifying him. Grrr. Chat, this would not work, by the way. Letting you know, it would definitely not be that easy. At least you think you're funny. That's the important part. Yeah, Asia also does not have closets. Yeah. This would not work this easily. I wonder why America does. It's kind of like closets are weird now that I think about it. They're just like a room dedicated to holding clothes and stuff, and it's like, that's a lot of space used up. That could have been like an entire extra room. Well, like, it's a lot of space that's taken up, and that I can't use for anything else except hanging things or storing things, maybe. Like, we don't think about it because we've always had it, but like, I have that is an entire size. My closet could be an additional part of my bedroom, like a massive part of my bedroom. And all I'm using is the sides of it to hang out clothes. The middle of it's empty. Oh, no, Sakona. Okay, so I don't think y'all are understanding. You still hang them up in Europe. Here, I'll show you. So you have cheap ones like this. You have cheap ones like this, right? Where you hang stuff up. Or you have, which you're not the only person who didn't get it. Or you can have stuff like these that are a little bit nicer. And then you hang the clothes up straight up there. Yeah. And so you have all these like nice little cabinet spaces, like here we go. Let's see if I can open this in a new tab. It's so tiny. Oh, this one's nice. We have this one here. And so my mother has like an entire room in her bedroom, or an entire wall of her room that is just hung up like that. And it makes it like very convenient because you see all of your clothes laid out side by side. It's all like nice and easy to look at. And you don't have to like go into the closet to pull things out. It's just there, right? Some of them will have glass openings so you can see them really nicely. Others will have, and in some of the drawers, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. Congratulations on catching the mouse. But like some of them have like drawers where you can even like put jewelry in it. Like I had a friend who did her closet up like that. Well, remember, there's going to be closet doors on them most of the time, so you'll be fine. But she had wardrobes in her closet. And so she'd pull out a drawer, and there was like a specific drawer just for like putting all of her jewelry in there, like a jewelry box style drawer. And she had ones that were like laid out to see all of her accessories, and it is nice to have. Like I like when people put those in their closets. Here we're missing trash somewhere. Where the trash be? This is a horrible bed. If I was trash, where would I be? Wait a second. You're kidding. Yes. There we go. But yeah, I'm just thinking about closets and closet spaces now. Why can't I mow the lawn? Why can't I mow the lawn? I should be allowed to mow the lawn. What's trash here? Thank you for the hydrate. Let me mow the lawn. Oh, I almost missed this radiator. That would have been a stupid thing to miss. You must drive. Enjoy your drive. That's the one thing I loved. So I stayed in London for a while, okay? I need to do that. I need to do that more often. It just makes the living space so much nicer when you do that every once in a while. I'm going to start doing it. So I was in London for a while. Stayed in like an Airbnb, which was a nice little apartment. It was really cute. And, what's missing? There's like a tiny fraction of a dollar amount missing here. Who cares? It's fine. Oh, here it is. And so yeah, anyways, when I was staying in London, we would go places, but all we needed to do was, we just walked to the train station, we got on the train, and we had I think we'd rented a car actually, or we'd taken anything. And it was so much easier to take the train to get anywhere, or to get on a bus or something, that I became jealous. Because if I had that ability to just easily hop onto a train anywhere and go a few stops, I would have gone out a lot more. And down to the point of yeah, anywhere was it was incredible. It was so incredible. Yeah. Alright, it's time to flip our first house, y'all. Oh, but I need to learn how to cut grass first so that I can finally get that. So let's see if any of these are going to let me cut grass. I guess we're going to do garden. Finally. Are you trying to tell me that mowing the lawn is only part of the DLC and I don't have the DLC? Wait a second. Oh, it better not be. It better not be. I'm gonna be so upset if mowing the lawn is part of the DLC. Because they're gonna give me long grass everywhere. You're telling me I can't cut it? They better let me mow the lawn. They don't. I'm gonna be. If I go back home and they won't let me mow the lawn, That's shady. I'm making weed eater noises. What are you talking about? Well, yeah, they didn't give me a lawnmower. They just gave me a bush cutter. Ix. 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 What tree? Which tree? Which tree? What tree they want me to cut down? Cut down 3 trees? Which ones? Oh, this is a nightmare. Hey, Chad, do you know what kind of tree this is? I'm gonna teach you something today. This is an aspen tree. You can see because they have the eyes. It looks like an aspen tree to me. So, let me see. Well, it depends on the leaf shape. We're going to take a look at the leaves. One second. We're looking at a blog here, Jake's Nature blog, to compare the two trees. Okay, no, these are definitely aspens because the bark becomes furrowed and brown on a birch and will peel back, but these are not peeling back. So do you know why this is awful? Do you know about aspen trees? Do you know? Here's the thing. Would you like to know what the largest living organism is? What the largest living organism is? No, the largest living organism is an aspen tree. Because an aspen tree connects underground. The largest one we have recorded is miles. These are like the branches of a tree. It's not a forest, it's a single tree. And so if you have these in your yards, that means there's a massive expanse underneath the ground of the rest of the body of the tree. So, yeah, that would mean that having these in your yard would not be good because that means there's probably something going on under the ground. Okay, we're supposed to cut down these three. So really, you can't cut down an aspen tree because they're still underground. Yeah, but the mushroom that's connected to the ground is not a single organism. It's a mycelium network that's connected between multiple different things. It's not a single entity, this is a single entity. Exactly. Gibbets, they feel like an eldritch entity. I mean, you can cut them, it's fine, but there's still so much beneath the ground. It's like trying to cut mint. Or like, blackberries. And so whenever you see an aspen forest, it is a single aspen tree. Tree law? Are you talking about, oh yeah, especially in the States. I love that we have such nice laws for trees. That also is not how that works. If you cut down a tree in the States, and depending on where you are, you'll have to pay 3 times its value at least, and you have to replace the tree with the same tree. You know how long it takes for trees to grow? It can be millions of dollars for cutting down a single tree. And too often rich people have done it being like, oh, I'll be fine. And suddenly, yeah. Yep. I think it's so interesting. And it makes sense. I mean, like, trees take forever to grow. They're an environmental impact. So if a rich person cuts it down, they're just like, I want this. Well, I want more view. Well, screw you. Oh, God, the game that I wanted was, actually, I don't even remember anymore now. Oh, Metal Gear. I want to get the new Metal Gear. I'll get it one day. What the heck is this? No, Minecraft birch trees are birch trees. The difference is that the bark on birch trees peels back. And that's how you can usually tell a birch from an aspen, is that an aspen will be solid white and have these eye-shaped holes on them, except these eyes look even creepier in person. I've taken pictures of the texture of them. Also, their leaves are very circular. But yeah, birch tree peels back with its bark and it changes color throughout its lifespan. Well, aspens stay this yellowy white. Katamiya, I refuse to tell you. I'm gonna get the second house flipper eventually anyway, so it's fine. So I'm not streaming through Xbox, I'm using the, I'm not saying it. Can't explain it to you, because then Kanamiya might try something. Thank you for the headbands. No, I wouldn't play Metal Gear on console, I don't own a console. That's how I'll phrase it. I do not own a console. Leave the bunk. Yeah. I have the Xbox Game Pass. And that allows me to spend $15 a month to have access to all, like, this massive library of games. What is good for me because I constantly swap games all the time. And it also gets new games that come out, so, you know, it works for me as well. That's the one. I have the one that's only PC games because I don't have console. So it worked nicely for me. And mine is less than 20. And I got grandfather claused in, so when they do increase the prices, they can't increase my price. I can't believe they're having me do this with a weed whacker. Might as well use a scythe. Scythe might be better. Have y'all ever seen the guy who mows his lawn with a scythe? And he's like, why do you do it? People are like, why do you do it? And he's like, well, I mean, first off, I enjoy doing it. Second, like, I can get around, like, certain things, and it's pretty consistent. And, like, third, this is also my workout. I'm like, valid. Your dad would mow with a scythe. Okay, well, I'm magnetic, apparently. And try and call you Missy. I could get the DLC, it's only $5, but also, like, What else if I want to? I don't want to spend any money. I'm broke, y'all. I'm broke. I gotta help my sister get a new apartment in Japan. And yeah, do you know how expensive it is for foreigners to get apartments in Japan? I'm gonna walk y'all through this. Okay. So here's how much it costs to move to Japan. Like if you want an apartment, to live in an apartment, first off, you have to have your payment ready. You have to obviously have your first month, and you have to have your last month ready from the very beginning. So first and last. It's not housing market, no, it's just the way it's done. So first and last. Then you have to have, of course, you have to have your safety deposit. Then a lot of times you also have a second month. Then you have to have a guarantor, and a guarantor is a person who ensures that a guarantor exists because you need to have somebody to go through just in case the foreigner decides to leave the country. So they become like on the hold for the bill. So you have to get a guarantor who's actually paying for your rent. And so you have to pay the guarantor an amount of money. So it's basically you pay your down payment, then you pay for it again. Then you have to give money to the rental company, and it's viewed as a gift to the rental group. So you give your gift to the guarantor. You have to have your 2 months, and you have to have your security deposit. And you do not get the gift back. That's just money that you lose. Why? Well, the guarantor makes sense because let's say you move to, you come to Japan on a work visa, right? And you do something. Let's say you do a crime or you do whatever and you leave. Or you just decide to dip because you can. Well, now the rental company is stuck with this massive bill because they had it set for you to be living there for a certain amount of time and you just left. And that was happening from time to time. So they have these companies that now are going to have to basically pay for your rent. So it's just a safety thing for them to be like, hey, we don't want to lose all of our money just because this person decided to leave. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. So I get the guarantor part. What I don't understand is the gifts, and that is more of a Japanese culture thing, that you have to do all these gifts to be like, thank you for considering renting me the place. Thank you for allowing like me to, or for being a guarantor, and I appreciate it, and all that kind of stuff. That's just a cultural thing, and that's where it gets annoying. It is quite a lot. It is quite a lot. Yep, that's fair. Where are all the... Okay, I'm missing something here. Can't really see the grass well. Yeah, thank you so much. That's... Yeah. But you know, that's fine. My sister enjoys living there. I'm happy for her. You have to bid on houses, yeah. All right. Yes. Oh, I mean, the housing market in the U.S. is bad too, but you know. All right, here we go. Let's buy all this junk real quick. why poinsettias of all things? So weird. I mean, I guess it is a desert plant. These all seem like desert foliage. Anyways, I've been looking at blueprints. It's on my list. My endlessly growing list. I rate the bun. I'm glad you made it to stream. Sorry I wasn't paying attention. I'm glad you like the motivational ones. I will be doing them every Friday. Yes, I do play the bass guitar, though I haven't for a while. I don't own one right now. I've been meaning to learn guitar for a little while, but I will eventually. Oh, that's adorable, Mutt. I'll be doing them every Friday. Somebody actually asked for one in particular, and I'm just like, it's really sweet. I will say, I mean, some people... Nothing, I'm fine. Oh yeah, they don't really teach cursive anymore, do they? I feel like I was one of the last generations they taught cursive to. Which it's funny, because like cursive, the entire point was just to, write faster. But now typing courses are a lot more important. Yeah. I don't think they do it in cursive. I honestly, like, being able to print legibly is more important for legal documents than signatures, and I feel like a lot of people just kind of come up with signatures. What about bass players? Sorry, I got distracted. We're talking about instruments, I forgot. I might. Yeah, we were talking about instruments. Someone asked me if I played anything. I said I play the bass. What did bass player do? Play the bass? Oh, we see where Jibbits's preference is. Wow. You freaking ukulele. Y'all, I might quit this game. I might quit the game. Because they put it on DLC and I can't cut the grass. The grass bothers me. I can't cut the grass. I can't cut the grass. It's in the DLC. They give me all this grass and it looks awful and it feels gross and it's here and I can't cut it. Because they put it in DLC and that makes me mad. Give me a freaking lawnmower. I might do House Flipper too. And let me see what the price is. So, okay. For me to enjoy this game, I need to be able to cut the grass, right? So I'm gonna look at all of the DLC for House Flipper 1, okay? We have 1, 2, 3. $35. $35 for me to buy all the DLC. Now. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. I'm gonna look up House Flipper 2 real quick. Oh, 1 second. I would not emotionally recover. You're so right. You're kidding me. Would you like to know how much House Flipper 2's costs? $39. And the one DLC they have, which is a Scooby-Doo DLC, which adds Scooby-Doo locations, would make it $49. So the second game is $39. So I could buy the entirety of House Flipper 2, which also has a co-op mode. Or I could buy the DLC for House Flipper 1. On sale, by the way. The DLC's on sale right now, so that DLC would be more expensive. And it looks like they have better cleaning. Oh, they have such nicer cleaning. And they got rid of the scraper. Oh, wait a second. And they have a spray bottle and a bucket. And the trash goes in a trash can. And I can play with other people. I can either buy House Flipper 2, which has all this additional features and nicer mechanics, or I can play House Flipper 1 and buy all the DLC. Hello. Thank you for the hydrate. And there's modding. And people modded it. Meaning there's more stuff. More places that I can do. Okay. Yeah, but House Flipper 1 was free. House Flipper 1 was completely free to me. 2, my lord? 2? Okay. Because I didn't know if I'd like the game or not, but I do like the game. It has upgrades that I like. Get some food. Well, we don't have time for it today. So... yeah. I do want to find a game, though. There's a sci-fi game that's coming out that I need to play. It is a game where you go around a place. Here, we're going to talk real quick. Oh, sorry. There's a game coming out where you are in a sci-fi building and you're trying to fix it. Have fun in therapy. I don't know what it's called. And I have no clue what it's called. But it's coming out soonish. And it looks so cool. Man, I have no idea how I'm going to find it. try to figure it out. One sec. That's fine, Nimbus. I just want to exist. Wait, no way, no way. Y'all, I found it. It's called The Lift. You're a handyman renovating a massive research facility abandoned after a mysterious incident. The Lift is an eerie first-person simulator with satisfying house-flipping gameplay, a mind-bending story, and a highly interactive world inspired by Soviet sci-fi and the SCP Foundation. So you go through it, and it's not like it's spooky, but it's not scary, you know? I just got a weird vibe while you're fixing everything up to keep moving forward. And so as you repair stuff, you try to figure out what's going on. It sounds so cool. I'm such a good doggy. Y'all, if we weren't in ASMR mode, I'd say we'd go watch it right now. But, here. See if I can just, yoinkish. Oh. I can't show you. But here it is. Y'all can check it out. There's a lot of good games coming out in 2026 that I need to play. I'm so excited. Oh, it's not my tiny build. The king is watching. What's this? I need to make a massive game list and just stop playing all these cool games. I need to find myself a game that I can play when I just want to shoot things, you know? Nada. Did I skip class? Not allowed. In fact, I will ban you from. I will time you out on stream if you do attempt to skip class. School's important. You need to go. Nope. Skip class too much and I will ban you. They're not skipping class yet. Well, I don't like Fortnite. I don't want to shoot other people. I just want to shoot things, you know? Like zombies or something. If I do the fundraiser and it goes really well. Oh, I don't know if I've told you all this, which, like, I think I've implied it, but if I get, like, the full funding that we're aiming for, I'm getting full VR. I'm getting full down. I'm getting body tracking VR. So you will see my arms and hand move live. But I'll also be playing a bunch of VR games. So not only will y'all be able to hang out with y'all in like VR chat, which we'll have at least like a once a week hangout with the chat, go into VR chat, maybe go to a VR world and have some fun. We're also gonna have a bunch of cool VR games that I've been wanting to play for years. Saints and Sinners for one. A bunch of little shooter games. You'll get to see full-on happy VR wiggles. I'll be playing a lot of Beat Saber too, because Beat Saber's a nice one. Oh, see, you don't need VR to go into VR chat though. You can do through your PC. Because VR chat still works through PC. And mobile, yeah. So y'all who have any VR issues can still do it in 2D with that. And I won't only be doing VR games, don't worry. I will promise I'll not only do VR games. Plus, I will try to do it like when I can, I'll do it as an external camera. Sweet. I do not know, Sinful. I do not know. Brain crackles. Star, you always say that every once in a while. What triggers them? I'm curious. Ooh, wait a second. You know what? Oh, gotcha. We might stop playing some demos, because there's some games here that I've seen that look interesting, like this game called The Last Caretaker. It looks kind of fun, but I'm not sure if I actually want to do it. So maybe we'll start playing some demos on stream. What do y'all think? Right. More grandpa. Oh, and this game has a demo. Man, there's so many cool demos. Alright. Oh, and there's a game that I also want to play that's like a zombie checkpoint game. Let's see, zombie. Quarantine Zone. Y'all, this game has a demo too. Man, why am I buying games? Why do I keep buying games? There's so many demos I could be playing. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna stop playing demos. A few of these games only have demos. Give me a second while I download these demos. Not that game. You got a demo yet? Last Caretaker, you got the demo. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I could just make like a short little video of trying out demos. Oh man, I'm gonna be downloading so many demos now. You don't even know. We're just gonna have a demo day. Thank you for the head pats and the odd. Yeah, we're gonna have to call it here, y'all. Let me see if I can find somebody. Star Rupture last week? Ooh, that sounds interesting. What is Star Rupture? Rupture, ooh. Oh, it was on playtest. I can't get in it. Lame. Sometimes the demos are better than the game. There's been a few times where... Bye, Moss. There's been a few times where game demos were better. Y'all ever hear about the Alien Commando issue? There was an Alien shooter game, and they released it, and the demo was so much better. So much better than the actual game, because like they added so much, like they lost so much, and like they ruined the lighting. It was awful, the amount of change that happened, and I don't remember if there was a reason why. That's a lot of titty. Yeah. So I'm looking for ASMR content, and I just saw a VTuber. I'm like, oh, let me click on this VTuber. That's gonna be fine. And it was just so much titty. Oh, and that... I like VTubers. I love VTubers, especially ones who do really cool things, but... I hate that it's always so hard to find. Cause I don't want to raid the same people every time, you know? Yeah, I know, like the crossover with sexual stuff is always so prevalent. Well, right into Yuki. Alright, lovelies, it has been a lovely stream. I just want... I don't mind it, but you know, it's just like the lewd content as well. It's like, that's not what I'm looking for in my relaxation. Alright, lovelies, we are going to be raiding out to the lovely Yuki. Can we get the raid message, please? I think it should be raid 2 now, right? There it is. Copy the EP raid message. I'll see you later. It's been a lovely stream. Oh, hi, Hoshi. You've all been amazing. Thank you so very much. Mwah. 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 Time to go to work. Bye, lovelies.